Voyager 2. The only spacecraft in history to have ever reached Neptune took 12 years to get there, traveling at 55,000 kilometers per hour. A car driving at highway speed would take 6,800 years. But distance is not the real reason the first humans to reach Neptune would never come home. There is something crueler than that, something deeper. And it is waiting at the end of this. Before we go any further, take 1 second to like and subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it means the world to us. Now, let's begin. You already know the image. 8 planets, neat little circles, evenly spaced, orbiting a bright yellow sun in the center. Everything arranged like a well-organized family portrait. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, the inner planets tucked in close, almost cozy. Then the outer giants fanning outward in a comfortable arc. Jupiter with its bands, Saturn with its rings, Uranus tilted sideways, Neptune a deep cold blue at the edge. The whole solar system, right there on one page. Clean, comprehensible. The kind of image that makes you feel like the universe is something you could hold in both hands and turn over slowly, examining each part. That image is a lie, not a malicious one. Nobody sat down and decided to deceive a generation of children. The textbook designers were simply working with a piece of paper, a standard sheet of physical reality, and the universe refused, categorically and completely, to cooperate. You cannot fit the actual solar system on a page. You cannot fit it in a room, in a building, or in a city. The universe was not designed to be convenient, and it was certainly not engineered to slip neatly inside a child's backpack between a math worksheet and a lunchbox. Here is what that poster should have looked like, if anyone had possessed the honesty and the hallway space to draw it correctly. Imagine the sun is a basketball, a standard NBA basketball, sitting on a sidewalk somewhere in Midtown Manhattan. At that scale, Earth becomes a peppercorn roughly 2 millimeters across, positioned approximately 26 meters away from the ball. That is nearly 3 school buses laid end to end. If you were standing at the basketball, the peppercorn would be invisible to your naked eye. You would not find it by looking. You would find it by knowing exactly where to look, and then crouching down to squint at the pavement. Mars, at that scale, is another tiny speck sitting about 40 meters out. Still in the same city block, still close enough that a short walk gets you there. Jupiter, the largest planet in the solar system. A world so massive it could swallow more than 1,000 Earths, becomes a marble about 140 meters away. Saturn, another marble, sits at 250 meters. Uranus, a small ball bearing, at 500 meters. Now, find Neptune. Neptune, at that same basketball scale, is a small dried pea sitting approximately 780 meters away from where the basketball sits on the sidewalk. Nearly half a mile, 8 city blocks. You would have to leave the street where the sun is sitting, walk through several intersections, past storefronts and crosswalks and traffic lights, and keep walking before you finally found a tiny pea on the pavement that represents the last true planet in our solar system. That is the solar system. Not a poster, a city, and a mostly empty one at that. The raw numbers confirm what the scale model shows. The distance from the Sun to Neptune is 4.5 billion kilometers. In the language of astronomy, that is 30 astronomical units, where 1 astronomical unit equals the average distance from the Earth to the Sun, approximately 150 million kilometers. Even that base unit, 1 astronomical unit, is already a number too large for human intuition to hold comfortably. You cannot picture 150 million kilometers. Your brain was not built for that. It was built for estimating distances between trees, between predators, between one watering hole and the next. 30 of those units, stacked end to end, is not something any human nervous system is equipped to truly feel. But the comparison that makes it real, that actually does something to your sense of proportion, is this one. Everything humanity has ever explored in space, every mission ever flown, every landing ever made, every rover track ever pressed into alien dust, fits inside 1.5 astronomical units. Sun to Mars, 1.5 astronomical units. That is the complete frontier of human achievement beyond Earth. 1.5 out of 30. Not even 5% of the distance to Neptune. 5%. All of the Apollo missions, all 12 moon landings, all of the Mars rovers, Sojourner, Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity, Perseverance, every flyby of Mercury and Venus, every probe dropped into Jupiter's atmosphere, every photograph of Saturn's rings taken up close. The sum total of everything our species has ever physically reached, measured against the distance to Neptune, is 5%. We are, spatially speaking, just barely out the door. The road trip comparison makes this visceral. If the distance from the Sun to Mars represents the drive from New York City to Philadelphia, roughly 95 miles, a trip most people do without a second thought, a drive you can complete before a podcast episode ends, then Neptune sits at Los Angeles, 4,200 miles away, across the continent. Everything we have ever done, every moment of interplanetary pride, every headline about historic missions and humanity reaching new frontiers, all of it happened in the first 95 miles of a 4,200-mile drive. We crossed into New Jersey and through a parade. To be absolutely fair, it was an impressive crossing into New Jersey. The engineering required to get humans to the moon was genuinely extraordinary, and nobody should diminish it. But the scale needs to be acknowledged honestly, because scale is exactly what everyone keeps getting wrong. Here is where a small, helpless laugh is the only reasonable response. Humanity reached the moon in 1969 and has been rightfully proud ever since. But at basketball scale, the only honest scale, the moon does not exist in a different zip code. The moon orbits Earth at an average distance of 384,000 kilometers. At our basketball model, that is approximately 1 millimeter away from the peppercorn that represents Earth. 1 millimeter. The thickness of a credit card. The moon is not across the street. It is not at the end of the driveway. It is in the backyard, next to the lawn chair, practically underfoot. We went to the backyard, planted a flag, and called it Conquering the Cosmos. Neptune, meanwhile, is 8 city blocks away, and no human being has ever made it past the end of the driveway. Not because of a lack of courage or intelligence or national will, because the driveway ends and the distance begins, and the distance is a completely different category of problem than anything the poster ever suggested. None of this, technically, is the textbook's fault. To draw the solar system at true scale with the sun represented at just 1 inch in diameter, Neptune would need to be placed approximately 1,400 feet away from that inch-wide circle. You would need a continuous scroll of paper stretching the full length of 4.5 football fields. No publisher prints that. No classroom hangs it. So instead, everyone compresses, everyone adjusts, everyone hands you a diagram where the planets look reachable, and your brain silently files the solar system under the category of large but navigable, the same mental folder it uses for a big country or a wide ocean. That filing error has consequences. It shapes how people talk about space exploration. It shapes the casual question, why haven't we sent people to Neptune yet? As if Neptune were a national park that keeps getting bumped down the vacation list. As if the obstacle were funding, or political will, or simply not getting around to it. It is not Philadelphia. It is not even Los Angeles. It is Los Angeles if Los Angeles were also moving at 5 kilometers per second, surrounded by lethal radiation on all sides. reachable only by a journey that lasts longer than it takes a newborn to finish high school, with no resupply possible, no rescue available, and no realistic prospect of coming home. The map was wrong. Every solar system diagram you ever studied was a deliberate compression, a necessary fiction built to fit inside a binding. And the moment you let that actually settle, the moment you swap the poster for the basketball on the sidewalk and walk those 8 city blocks in your mind, every casual conversation about sending humans to the outer planets changes character completely. But the distance is only the outermost layer of the problem. What lives inside the gap between the outer planets, the actual texture and scale of that emptiness, turns out to be something the poster never even hinted at. Uranus sits at 19.2 astronomical units from the Sun. Neptune sits at 30.1 astronomical units from the Sun. The gap between them, one single step, from the 7th planet to the 8th and final one, is 10.9 astronomical units, or approximately 1.63 billion kilometers. Hold that number next to something you already understand. The entire distance from the Sun to Mars, the complete span of every crewed space mission in history, the full width of everything humanity has ever physically reached, is 1.52 astronomical units. The gap between Uranus and Neptune alone is 7 times larger than that entire zone. 7 times. One interplanetary gap in the outer solar system, a single stride between 2 adjacent planets, contains the whole inhabited, explored, carefully mapped inner solar system 7 times over, with room to spare. Expressed differently, that one stretch between Uranus and Neptune accounts for nearly 37% of the total radius of the planetary solar system. More than 1/3 of the entire distance from the Sun to the outermost planet lives in a single cold, lightless, nearly featureless corridor between 2 ice giants that most people would struggle to locate correctly on a diagram. The solar system is not a uniform spread of worlds across equal distances. It is violently, almost offensively lopsided, a crowded inner cluster, and then an abyss, growing wider and emptier the farther out you go, until the gap between the last 2 planets dwarfs everything that came before them combined. This is where the fastest object humanity has ever built enters the picture. New Horizons left Earth in January of 2006, traveling at approximately 58,000 kilometers per hour, 16.1 kilometers per second. That is fast enough to fly from New York to London in under 4 minutes. Fast enough to circle the entire Earth at the equator in less than 45 minutes. By any standard that a human body can relate to, 58,000 kilometers per hour is a speed that should be able to go anywhere quickly. If New Horizons were aimed directly at Neptune and flew at that full velocity with no trajectory adjustments and no gravitational assists, it would take approximately 8 years just to cross the Uranus-Neptune gap. Not the complete trip from Earth, not the deceleration phase needed to actually enter orbit. Just the gap. 8 years at 58,000 kilometers per hour to cover one segment of one journey between 2 adjacent planets. Let that restructure your sense of what the outer solar system actually means. It is not a scaled-up version of the inner solar system. It is a qualitatively different kind of space, emptier, colder, darker, and governed by distances that laugh at the speeds our best engineering has managed to produce so far. And this is the moment for a question that deserves to sit with you for more than a second. If the maps we grew up with were wrong from the beginning, if every spatial instinct we developed about what is reachable and what is not was calibrated against a compressed fiction, then how many of our assumptions about what is possible in human space exploration are built on that same distorted foundation? This is not a philosophical flourish. It is a practical problem. When engineers and policymakers and enthusiastic members of the public talk about crewed missions to the outer solar system, they are, almost without exception, picturing the poster. They are doing their intuitive math in textbook units, where the planets are evenly spaced and the gaps look crossable. Every subsequent decision about timelines, about technological readiness, about what counts as ambitious versus what counts as reckless, all of it flows downstream from that original, inaccurate image absorbed at age 8. The numbers do not forgive that. Voyager 2 makes this concrete and impossible to argue with. Launched in August of 1977, Voyager 2 remains the only spacecraft in history to have visited Neptune. It arrived in August of 1989, 12 years of continuous flight at an average speed of approximately 55,000 kilometers per hour, using precisely calculated gravitational assists from both Jupiter and Saturn along the way, maneuvers that essentially allowed the spacecraft to steal a tiny fraction of those planets' enormous orbital momentum, slingshotting forward without burning additional fuel. These assists were not a shortcut. They were an extraordinary feat of orbital mechanics that required the planets to be aligned in a configuration that occurs roughly once every 175 years. NASA called it the Grand Tour alignment. They timed the launch to catch it. Without it, the journey to Neptune would have taken decades longer. 12 years, and Voyager 2 did not stop. It did not slow down, did not orbit, did not linger. It flew through the Neptune system in a window of roughly a few days, a brief, hurtling encounter during which it captured the photographs and readings that still represent the bulk of our direct observational data on Neptune. Not a visit, a drive-by, the astronomical equivalent of snapping a photograph out of a car window at highway speed and calling it a tour. NASA has never, at any point across its entire institutional history, formally proposed a crewed Neptune mission with a realistic launch date attached. Not during the ambition of the Apollo era, not during the long operational years of the space shuttle, not under any presidential directive or congressional mandate. The agency's Human Research Program, which exists specifically to evaluate whether human bodies and minds can survive deep space missions, consistently identifies Mars as the near-term crewed target, precisely because Neptune represents a different order of problem. The distance does not merely make it harder, it makes it a categorically different kind of challenge, one that sits outside the boundaries of what any current or near-future propulsion system can address for a living crew. The poster said the solar system was a neighborhood. The math says the outer solar system is a wilderness. And the gap between those two descriptions is not a matter of emphasis or perspective. It is a foundational difference that changes everything about what is realistic, what is dangerous, and what it would actually mean to send human beings into that darkness. We gave everyone the wrong map. We handed it to children before they had any tools to question it, and then we spent decades wondering why the territory kept surprising us. The illusion of distance has been fully exposed. But even if you accept every kilometer of it, even if you sit with the complete weight of 4.5 billion kilometers and let it press down on you, there is still something more insidious waiting. Your voice moves at the speed of light, and from Neptune, it still will not arrive in time to matter. Everyone who has ever been on an international video call knows the lag. That quarter-second delay where you start talking, then stop. Then the other person starts. Then you both talk at once. Then you both go silent and stare at each other awkwardly. A few hundred milliseconds. Barely perceptible, technically speaking, and yet enough to make conversation feel slightly broken, like a live translation with a hiccup built in. It is annoying. It is manageable. You hang up and life continues. Astronauts on the International Space Station have it better than that. The ISS orbits at roughly 400 kilometers above Earth's surface. At that distance, the signal delay is so small a fraction of a millisecond that astronauts can call their families and have conversations that feel completely normal. Scott Kelly spent 340 days aboard the ISS and spoke to his family regularly, almost as easily as calling someone across town. NASA has built the psychological support structure for long-duration spaceflight around exactly that assumption that voice contact, real-time or near real-time, is always available, that someone on the ground is always reachable within seconds. Neptune destroys that assumption completely. A radio signal, any communication, moving at the speed of light, 299,792 kilometers per second, takes 4 hours and 9 minutes to travel from Neptune to Earth, one way. To send a message and receive a reply, the minimum elapsed time is 8 hours and 18 minutes. Not because of equipment limitations, not because of bandwidth or interference or anything engineering could fix, because of the distance itself, and because nothing in the known universe carries information faster than light. The round-trip communication delay to Neptune is a hard physical wall, and it does not care about urgency. The precise numbers from NASA's Deep Space Network, which manages all communications with distant spacecraft, put the one-way signal delay to Neptune at somewhere between 240 minutes and 252 minutes, depending on where Neptune sits in its orbital positions relative to Earth. At its closest approach, Neptune is approximately 29 astronomical units away. At its farthest, approximately 31 astronomical units. The delay shifts accordingly, but the floor never drops below 4 hours each way. There is no orbital window, no clever antenna alignment, no signal boosting technology that changes this. Physics does not negotiate. Now make it human, not abstract, not theoretical human and immediate. You are on a spacecraft. You wake up in the middle of what passes for night in a metal cylinder barreling through deep space, and your chest hurts. Not mild discomfort, real pain. Radiating. The kind that makes your body send a very specific alarm signal that something may be very wrong. You call the flight surgeon at mission control. Your voice leaves the spacecraft at the speed of light. It travels for 4 hours and 9 minutes across 4.5 billion kilometers of vacuum. The flight surgeon hears it, evaluates your symptoms, runs through the differential diagnosis, consults a cardiologist, and sends a response. That response travels back for another 4 hours and 9 minutes. 8 hours and 18 minutes after you first felt the pain, the answer arrives. You would wait, or would the outcome already be written? This is not a hypothetical edge case. This is the baseline operational reality for every single medical event, every equipment failure, every moment of judgment that requires outside input. The entire communication architecture NASA has built over 7 decades the Deep Space Network's 70-meter dish antennas across California, Spain, and Australia, the emergency protocols, the flight director chains of command, the minute-by-minute mission control support was designed around one foundational assumption that meaningful intervention is possible within minutes. Apollo 13's oxygen tank ruptured, and within seconds, mission control was working the problem in real time alongside the crew. That instant collaboration saved 3 lives. Take away real-time communication, and the Apollo 13 crew dies. Full stop. Neptune does not allow the Apollo 13 response. It does not allow any response that matters on the timescale of a medical emergency, a fire, a pressure leak, or a system failure. By the time mission control hears about the problem and sends back guidance, the situation has either been resolved by the crew alone, or it has ended the crew. Those are the only 2 options. Mars, for comparison, has a maximum one-way signal delay of approximately 24 minutes when the planets are at their farthest orbital separation, and roughly 3 minutes at closest approach. NASA's Human Research Program has formally identified 24 minutes as the outer edge of tolerable communication delay for crewed missions, the point at which ground support begins losing meaningful ability to intervene in rapidly developing emergencies. Engineers and mission planners have spent years grappling with what a 24-minute delay means for crew autonomy, decision-making, and psychological support structures. Neptune's minimum delay is 10 times that. On its worst days, it is more than 17 times that. Every framework NASA has built around the Mars Communication Challenge, every protocol for delayed decision-making, every training program for crew autonomy, every psychological support structure designed to bridge the gap is insufficient by an order of magnitude for Neptune. It is not a scaled-up version of the Mars problem. It is a different problem category entirely, one that no human crew has ever actually operated inside, and one that the current institutional architecture of human spaceflight was not designed to handle. The gap between manageable delay and you are completely on your own is not a smooth gradient. It is a cliff. Mars sits uncomfortably close to the edge. Neptune is at the bottom. Losing real-time communication is frightening enough on its own. But what comes next is the part that actually kills not the crew's inability to speak, but their inability to hear anything that still means something. NASA has formally documented psychological support as a mission-critical survival factor for long-duration spaceflight. Not a comfort, not a morale bonus. A survival factor, the same category as oxygen, water, and thermal regulation. On the International Space Station, astronauts have daily access to private video calls with family members, weekly sessions with behavioral health specialists, and the continuous ambient knowledge that if something goes wrong emotionally, a trained psychologist on the ground is reachable within a second. That infrastructure is not accidental. It was built because the data demanded it. Crews that lose connection to psychological support deteriorate, not eventually measurably, documentably within months. The HISEAS program, Hawaii Space Exploration. Analog and simulation gave NASA its closest controlled look at what communication delay does to human psychology in isolation. Crews of 6 lived in a dome on the slopes of Mauna Loa for periods of up to 12 months, simulating the conditions of a Mars mission, including an artificially imposed communication delay of 20 minutes each way. The results were not reassuring. Psychological performance metrics declined significantly within a few months of isolation. Crew cohesion fractured. The quality of communication with the outside world already delayed, already asynchronous, dropped off as crew members stopped reaching out because the interaction no longer felt like connection. It felt like leaving messages for people who would respond to a version of you that no longer existed by the time the reply arrived. That was 20 minutes. Each way. Neptune imposes 250 minutes each way, more than 12 times the delay that produced measurable psychological deterioration in a controlled simulation on Earth. Conducted by people who could walk outside and feel sunlight on their faces. You are probably thinking something right now. You're thinking they could pre-record messages. They could send voice memos, video logs, letters, asynchronous communication, the way people managed before phones existed. Pen pals crossed oceans and maintained meaningful relationships. Surely a crew could adapt to that. Yes. They could send recordings. They could receive recordings in return. But ask yourself honestly, not abstractly, not theoretically, but from the lived experience of being a person who needs other people, can you sustain your mental health across 15 years by receiving podcasts from your family, not conversations, not responses to what you actually said yesterday? Pre-produced audio from people reacting to a version of your life that is already 4 hours in the past by the time they record it, and 8 hours older still by the time you hear their response. The answer is not yes. The research does not support yes. Human psychological resilience is real, and it is remarkable, but it is not infinite, and it was not built for that specific kind of deprivation, not the absence of communication, but the presence of communication that has been hollowed out of its most essential quality, the sense that someone is actually there, in the same moment, hearing you. The technical consequences of this follow directly from the psychological ones. Because when a crew cannot rely on ground support for emotional stability and cannot rely on ground support for real-time decision-making, every judgment call falls entirely on the people in the spacecraft. Every engineering decision, every medical assessment, every psychological crisis that any one crew member experiences, all of it must be handled internally, with the training and resources available on board, with no possibility of escalating to a more qualified expert in time to matter. The crew must contain, between them, functional competence equivalent to a team of aerospace engineers, mechanical systems specialists, software developers, emergency physicians, surgeons, pharmacists, and clinical psychologists. And they must execute correctly the first time, because there is no second opinion arriving in under 8 hours. This is not theoretical crew preparation. This is a qualitative change in what a human mission requires, a level of autonomous competence that no crew selection process, no matter how rigorous, can fully guarantee across every possible emergency over a 15-year mission. Voyager 2 illustrates the operational reality with perfect clarity. When Voyager 2 conducted its Neptune flyby in August of 1989, the one-way signal delay was 246 minutes. When mission controllers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory sent a command to adjust the spacecraft's trajectory, they then waited 4 hours and 6 minutes just to find out whether the command had been received and executed. 4 hours of uncertainty for a trajectory tweak on an unmanned probe following a pre-planned flight path with no human lives at stake. Now replace the unmanned probe with 6 people? Replace the pre-planned flyby with a 15-year crewed mission involving thousands of variables, system failures, medical events, and real-time decisions. Replace the trajectory command with, "We think the reactor cooling system is losing pressure, and we need to know what to do right now." The 4-hour wait does not change. The physics does not bend for urgency. There's a certain grim irony in all of this that deserves acknowledgement. The Neptune crew would be, by any measure, the most extensively trained group of human beings in history: engineers, doctors, pilots, scientists, psychologists, all rolled into a handful of people operating at the absolute frontier of human capability. They would be required to be more self-sufficient, more broadly competent, and more psychologically resilient than any crew that has ever flown. And they would do all of this completely alone, in the dark, with the full knowledge that if they run into something they cannot solve themselves, the most sophisticated support network humanity has ever built is 8 hours away and functionally useless. Essentially, the Neptune crew would be the only people in history required to debug mission-critical spacecraft hardware with no stack overflow, no engineering team on call, and a support ticket response time of 8 hours on a good day, when nothing is actually on fire. The communications architecture is dead. The psychological lifeline is severed. What comes for the crew next operates on a much longer timescale, but it is no less relentless because the body, unlike a radio signal, does not need a reason to start failing. It just does. Slowly, continuously, and without mercy. Scott Kelly spent 340 days aboard the International Space Station between 2015 and 2016 at the time, the longest single spaceflight by an American astronaut. When he landed in Kazakhstan in March of 2016 and was helped out of the Soyuz capsule, he could not walk unassisted. His legs had forgotten how to carry him. His cardiovascular system, unaccustomed to gravity's demands after nearly a year of effortless floating, struggled to maintain adequate blood pressure in an upright position. His vision had deteriorated due to intracranial pressure changes caused by fluid shifting toward his head in microgravity. His muscles had thinned. His bones had shed density. He spent months in rehabilitation, slowly coaxing his body back toward the baseline it had abandoned 11 months earlier. 340 days, 11 months. and the damage was significant enough to require months of recovery on Earth, with full medical support, gravity, proper nutrition, and every resource modern medicine could provide. A one-way journey to Neptune takes between 12 and 20 years, not 11 months. 12 to 20 years, and that is with optimistic propulsion assumptions. Scott Kelly's 340 days represent, at best, 1/18 of the lower bound of a Neptune transit. 18 consecutive Scott Kelly missions, stacked end to end, with no recovery period between them, no return to Earth's gravity, no rehabilitation, no medical facility capable of providing the interventions that allowed Kelly to walk again. The body that begins the journey to Neptune will be a fundamentally different body, older, weaker, structurally compromised by the time it arrives. And arrival, as we have established, is not the end. It is just the middle. The NASA twin study, published in 2019 in the journal Science, gave the scientific community its most detailed portrait yet of what spaceflight does to human biology. The study compared Scott Kelly with his identical twin brother Mark, who remained on Earth during the mission, a natural control group that no amount of grant funding could have engineered more perfectly. The findings were not subtle. After 340 days in space, approximately 7% of Scott's gene expression had changed compared to Mark's. His telomeres, the protective caps on the ends of chromosomes that shorten with age and stress, initially lengthened in space, then shortened rapidly upon return, ending up shorter than before the mission. His gut microbiome was significantly disrupted. His cognitive performance showed measurable decline in certain areas. Inflammation markers were elevated. The carotid artery walls had thickened. Most of these changes reversed over the 6 months following his return to Earth. Most, not all. Some of the gene expression alterations remained changed. Some of the cognitive differences persisted. The study's authors were careful about drawing conclusions. One subject, one mission, many variables, but the direction of the data was unambiguous. Space changes the body in ways that Earth can partially undo. Given time and gravity and medical support, it changes the body in other ways that appear to be permanent. 340 days produced partial, permanent biological changes in one of the most physically fit and carefully monitored human beings on the planet. Bone loss compounds this in a way that becomes almost too clinical to absorb, without stopping for a moment to let it land. In microgravity, astronauts lose between 1 and 2% of bone mineral density per month. The rate varies by skeletal region. The hip and spine lose density faster than other areas, but the average across the body sits in that 1 to 2% monthly range. For comparison, postmenopausal women on Earth, experiencing the most accelerated natural bone loss that typical human physiology produces, lose approximately 1 to 2% of bone density per year. Astronauts in microgravity lose the same amount every month, 10 times faster. And the countermeasures available on the ISS, 2+ hours of resistive exercise daily, dietary supplementation, carefully monitored protocols manage to slow this loss, but do not stop it. They are mitigation, not prevention. After 15 years in space without adequate countermeasures, or with countermeasures that degrade, along with the equipment providing them, the skeletal system of a Neptune crew member would approximate the bone density profile of a person in their 80s. A 30-year-old who launched would carry the structural skeleton of an 80-year-old. Every activity that requires bone integrity, and in a spacecraft. That means every physical task, every emergency response requiring sudden movement. Every spacewalk carries fracture risk that would be considered disqualifying for any normal human activity on Earth. Then there is radiation. The International Space Station orbits within Earth's magnetosphere, the magnetic field generated by our planet's iron core that deflects the majority of charged particles streaming in from the sun and from galactic cosmic rays originating outside the solar system. Inside that protective bubble, ISS crew members receive approximately 150 millisieverts of radiation per year, significant roughly 50 times the average annual dose for a person on Earth's surface, but manageable within NASA's established lifetime exposure limits. Outside the magnetosphere, in deep space, the numbers change drastically. Galactic cosmic rays, which the magnetosphere normally deflects, stream through a spacecraft's hull without obstruction. Solar particle events, bursts of high-energy protons ejected by the sun during solar flares, and coronal mass ejections can deliver acute radiation doses within hours. Conservative estimates for deep space radiation exposure range between 400 and 900 millisieverts per year. Depending on solar activity and shielding, NASA's current lifetime permissible exposure limit for astronauts is 600 millisieverts total, a limit set specifically because exceeding it raises the lifetime cancer risk by 3% or more above baseline. A 15-year Neptune mission would expose each crew member to somewhere between 6,000 and 13,500 millisieverts of radiation, between 10 and 22.5 times NASA's lifetime limit. In terms of chest X-rays, a unit of radiation dose most people have a tangible reference for. At approximately 0.1 millisieverts per scan, a Neptune crew member would absorb the equivalent of between 40,000 and 135,000 chest X-rays over the course of the mission, while being unable to leave, while the equipment designed to shield them ages and degrades, while there is no oncologist 8 hours away, or even 8 light hours away, who can do anything useful about the cellular damage accumulating in their bodies. The body keeps a precise and unforgiving ledger. It records every month of bone loss, every elevated radiation dose, every hour of cardiovascular deconditioning, every disrupted night of sleep in artificial light cycles. It does not forget, and it does not allow credit for the difficulty of the circumstances. The mission that asks a human body to survive 12 to 20 years in deep space is asking it to do something that human biology, shaped by 4 million years of evolution on a one-gravity, magnetosphere-shielded, sunlit planet, was not built to sustain. The body is dissolving slowly. But there is something more frightening than what happens to the flesh. It is what happens to time itself. When you begin to understand that this journey will consume the best years of everything you ever were. Assume the crew departs at 30 years old, young enough for physical resilience, experienced enough for mission qualification. At the lower bound of transit time, 12 years. They arrive at Neptune at age 42. At the upper bound, 20 years. They arrive at 50. The mission at Neptune itself, orbital surveys, surface probe deployments, whatever scientific program justifies sending human beings to the edge of the solar system, lasts 3 to 5 additional years. Then there is no return journey. The physics, as we will examine in detail later, does not permit one with any foreseeable technology. They live out their remaining years at Neptune, in the spacecraft, orbiting a dark blue planet 4.5 billion kilometers from everything they have ever known. They die there, somewhere between the ages of 50 and 70, depending on how the body held up and how the mission unfolded. Their remains stay in the spacecraft, orbiting Neptune, for geological timescales. This is not speculation dressed up as drama. This is the straightforward arithmetic of distance and time applied to human biology. Now think about what that arithmetic means for the people left behind. A crew member who has a 5-year-old child at departure will have a child who is 17 years old when the crew's first signals from Neptune arrive, assuming a 12-year transit and near instantaneous signal processing, which ignores the 4-hour communication delay entirely. By the time the crew physically arrives at Neptune and completes even the earliest phase of work there, that child has grown from a kindergartner into a full adult without a parent present for a single birthday, A single graduation? A single crisis? A single ordinary Tuesday? Not absent in the way that deployed military parents are absent with letters, with video calls, with the reasonable expectation of return. Absent in the way that death is absent, except the parent is still technically alive, just unreachable in any meaningful sense. Receding at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour into a darkness so complete that their existence becomes philosophical rather than practical. The psychological term for this kind of ambiguous loss, present but functionally gone, alive but inaccessible, does not map neatly onto any existing clinical category. It is something new, and it happens to both the person who leaves and the person who stays. The Mars 500 study, conducted jointly by the European Space Agency and Russia's Institute of Biomedical Problems between 2010 and 2011, simulated a 520-day crewed Mars mission in a sealed isolation facility in Moscow. 6 participants, no actual spaceflight, Earth normal gravity, access to all the food, entertainment, and communication they needed just confined, with an artificially imposed communication delay. The results were documented and published in peer-reviewed literature. 3 of the 6 crew members developed clinically significant sleep disorders during the mission. Physical activity levels dropped sharply as the mission progressed. Crew members became increasingly sedentary, despite having nothing preventing them from exercising. Signs of depression and psychological withdrawal appeared measurably after 250 days of isolation. 520 days, 1 year and 5 months, on Earth, in a building, with gravity, with windows, with the ability to receive fresh food. A Neptune mission runs approximately 5,475 days at the low end, 15 years assuming departure to arrival only. That is more than 10 times the duration of Mars 500, 10 times the isolation, 10 times the confinement, with the added weight of knowing, with certainty, that there is no exit. In Moscow, the Mars 500 crew could have opened the door at any time. The psychological literature notes that the knowledge of being able to leave, even when choosing not to, is itself a significant buffer against the worst psychological deterioration. Remove that buffer entirely, make the confinement genuinely permanent, and the psychological trajectory changes in ways the existing research cannot fully model, because no one has ever actually done it. Close your eyes for a moment and try to make this real, not as an abstract thought experiment, but as a physical sensation. You are inside a metal structure, not a house, not an apartment, a pressurized metal vessel designed for survival, not for living. It is smaller than your studio apartment. The walls do not change. The ceiling does not change. The sounds do not change except for the mechanical rhythms of life support systems. There are no windows that look out onto anything you recognize. There is no weather. There is no smell of rain, no sensation of wind, no feeling of sunlight on your skin that came from a sun close enough to warm you. The people you love cannot reach you, cannot visit, cannot hold your hand when something frightens you. You will live inside this for 15 years. At the end of 15 years, you will not go home. Are you still yourself? Is the person who has lived inside that vessel for 15 years the same person who boarded it? And if the answer is no, which the psychology strongly suggests, it would not be then who, exactly, arrives at Neptune. The living space figures make this visceral in a different way. The Destiny Laboratory module on the International Space Station, NASA's primary research module, offers approximately 106 cubic meters of total pressurized volume. That is the space available for 6 people to live, work, sleep, exercise, and maintain psychological function. It is roughly equivalent to the interior of a large school bus. A realistic interplanetary spacecraft for a Neptune mission would be constrained by launch mass limits to an estimated 50 cubic meters per crew member in the most optimistic current design proposals, and likely less in practice. 50 cubic meters, about the size of a small one-car garage for one person, for 15 years. For a point of comparison, a standard single-occupancy cell in the American federal prison system measures approximately 3.3 square meters of floor space, not cubic meters, square meters of floor. Cramped, deliberately punishing, designed as punishment, and yet prisoners in solitary confinement are typically released after a period measured in months, not decades. They have a release date. They have a known endpoint. The Neptune crew would have neither. The minimum sentence for a federal crime in the United States that results in solitary confinement is shorter than the minimum transit time to Neptune. At least the prisoner has a calendar on the wall that means something. But even if the body holds together, even if the mind finds a way to endure, there is something that requires no catastrophic failure, no psychological collapse, no structural emergency. Just one small pipe, one failed seal, one component that wears out on year 11 of a 15-year mission, and no one can send the part. Apollo 13 is one of the most celebrated survival stories in human history. April of 1970. 256,000 miles from Earth, an oxygen tank in the service module explodes, crippling the spacecraft, venting oxygen into space and stripping the crew of electrical power, heat, and the ability to use the command module that was supposed to bring them home. 3 astronauts, Jim Lovell, Jack Swigert, Fred Hayes, a mission that was supposed to land on the moon. Suddenly, a desperate improvisation to survive long enough to fall back toward Earth. What followed was 4 days of real-time problem-solving between the crew and mission control in Houston, engineers tearing apart instruction manuals, improvising carbon dioxide scrubbers from mismatched equipment, calculating re-entry trajectories on the fly with degraded systems, rationing power to numbers that should not have been survivable. The crew made it home. The mission was called a successful failure. NASA called it their finest hour. And they were right. It was extraordinary. Apollo 13 happened at 330,000 kilometers from Earth. Neptune is 4.5 billion kilometers from Earth. That is 13,600 times farther away than the distance at which the Apollo 13 miracle unfolded. And the miracle of Apollo 13, the specific miracle, the one where skilled engineers can hear about the problem, develop solutions in real time, talk the crew through each step, and receive confirmation that it worked. That miracle depends entirely on the ability to communicate in something resembling real time. It depends on the loop between spacecraft and ground being short enough that a conversation can happen. At 330,000 kilometers, signals travel in under 2 seconds. The loop is closed. Problem solving is possible. At 4.5 billion kilometers, the loop takes 8 hours minimum. The miracle does not scale. It does not exist at that distance. It is not a question of engineering creativity or astronaut skill or institutional determination. It is a question of physics, and physics is not sentimental about the outcome. Consider the fastest possible rescue scenario. A crisis occurs aboard the Neptune spacecraft, catastrophic, life-threatening, requiring external intervention. Mission Control receives the distress signal 4 hours and 9 minutes after it was sent. They immediately, without a moment's hesitation, launch the fastest rescue vehicle ever built. Traveling at the same speed, Voyager 2 achieved approximately 55,000 kilometers per hour. That rescue vehicle would arrive at Neptune in roughly 9 to 10 years. The crew, depending on the nature of the emergency, needs oxygen within minutes, water within days, structural repair within hours. A rescue ship launched the moment the distress signal arrives would reach Neptune, long after any biological outcome has already been determined. The numbers are not ambiguous. They do not leave room for creative interpretation. The rescue scenario does not exist, not as a practical option, not as a contingency plan, not as a last resort. Any mission architecture that includes rescue from Earth as a fallback for a Neptune crew is not a mission plan. It is a comforting fiction. The ISS's Environmental Control and Life Support System, known as ECLSS, is one of the most sophisticated closed-loop life support systems ever operated in space. Among its functions is water recovery, processing crew urine, humidity condensate, and other wastewater back into potable water through a multi-stage filtration and chemical treatment process. The system achieves a water recovery rate of approximately 93%, meaning 93 cents of every water dollar spent gets recycled back into the loop. It is impressive engineering, and it keeps the crew alive on a station that would otherwise require enormous quantities of water delivered from Earth. When a component of the ECLSS fails on the ISS, and components do fail regularly, across the system's operational life, a resupply mission from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan can deliver replacement parts in approximately 6 hours. 6 hours from problem to solution. The crew has buffer reserves designed to bridge exactly that kind of gap. The system is engineered around the assumption that help is 6 hours away on a Neptune spacecraft. If the water recovery system suffers a critical component failure, the crew's buffer reserves, whatever emergency water stores the mass budget allowed them to launch with, would last approximately 30 to 60 days. Not because the engineers were careless, because water is heavy, launch mass is finite, and the margin between enough buffer to bridge a repair window and enough buffer to survive without any repair window is the difference between a few hundred kilograms and a few thousand. A realistic spacecraft cannot carry the latter without compromising everything else. 30 to 60 days of water, 9 to 10 years for a rescue vehicle. The gap between those two numbers is not a planning problem. It is a death sentence written in arithmetic. The moon missions had a structural safety net baked into the physics of their trajectories. A free return trajectory, the kind Apollo 8 and Apollo 13 both used, is an orbital path that, if the spacecraft's engine fails entirely and no further thrust is applied, naturally carries the vehicle around the moon and back to Earth under gravity alone. No rescue needed, no intervention required. The laws of orbital mechanics themselves provide the exit. This is why Jim Lovell's crew survived even after losing their propulsion capability. The trajectory was already doing the work of bringing them home. No such trajectory exists for Neptune. The orbital mechanics of a Neptune mission do not produce a free return path. The distances, the orbital velocities involved, and the gravitational geometry of the outer solar system mean that a spacecraft heading for Neptune is heading for Neptune. And if the engine fails, it continues heading outward or drifts into an orbit that no rescue mission could practically address. There is no gravitational safety net. The spacecraft must function. The crew must solve every problem themselves, because the alternative is not a difficult rescue. The alternative is that no rescue comes. No rescue from outside, no resupply from Earth. But the problem is not only what the crew cannot receive, it is what they cannot replace when what they carry starts to break down from within. Carry more spare parts. It sounds reasonable. It sounds like exactly the kind of engineering discipline that responsible mission planning requires. If the mission lasts 15 to 20 years, bring enough replacement components to keep the critical systems running for 15 to 20 years. Simple logic, straightforward solution. Except that logic runs directly into Konstantin Tsiolkovsky's rocket equation, derived in 1897, still mercilessly in force today, which establishes the mathematical relationship between the mass of a spacecraft, the mass of its propellant, and the velocity change it can achieve. The equation does not care about good intentions or engineering creativity. What it says, in practical terms, is this every kilogram of spare parts you add to the spacecraft requires additional propellant to launch and to decelerate. That additional propellant adds mass. That added mass requires more propellant still. The cycle compounds exponentially, not linearly, and for a mission requiring the velocity changes of a Neptune transit. The relationship between spare part mass and required propellant mass is punishing. Add 1 kilogram of spare parts, and you need several kilograms of additional propellant. Add those several kilograms of propellant, and you have increased the spacecraft's mass budget in ways that cascade through every other system. The result is that a Neptune spacecraft cannot carry everything it might need. It cannot carry a comprehensive spare parts inventory for 15 to 20 years of continuous operation. The mass budget simply does not allow it, no matter how clever the packing or how advanced the launch vehicle. Mission designers must choose which components to carry spares for and which to treat as critical single points of failure, knowing that if an unspared component breaks, there is no replacement, no repair, and no resupply. The International Space Station, for context, contains more than 2 million individual components. It operates with a continuous resupply pipeline, averaging 4 to 6 dedicated cargo missions per year, plus additional components delivered on crewed missions. The station's maintenance philosophy assumes that replacements are always incoming, that the supply chain from Earth is never more than a few months away, and that critical system failures can be bridged by buffer reserves until a fix arrives. That philosophy is not optional, it is structural. Without continuous resupply, ISS operations become untenable within a time frame measured in months, not years. A Neptune spacecraft cannot operate on that philosophy. It carries what it launches with, and nothing more will ever join it. You are already thinking the obvious response. Three-dimensional printing? In-space manufacturing. NASA has been exploring additive manufacturing for spacecraft components since the early 2010s. And the International Space Station has hosted a three-dimensional printer since 2014. Print the spare parts you need, when you need them, from raw feedstock carried aboard. The concept is real, the research is ongoing, and it runs into a boundary that current and near-future additive manufacturing technology cannot cross. Three-dimensional printing in its current operational form handles polymers, plastics, resins, and certain simple metal alloys. It produces structural components, brackets, housings, non-critical hardware. What it cannot produce, with any technology available today or incredible near-term development, is a radiation-hardened microprocessor, a molecular filtration membrane with micron-scale precision tolerances, an electrochemical exchange membrane for a fuel cell or electrolysis system, a bearing assembly requiring metallurgical properties that only specialized manufacturing processes can achieve. These are not exotic components. They are standard elements of any spacecraft's life support, power generation, propulsion control, and communication systems. And they cannot be printed from a feedstock hopper inside a spacecraft. The crew can print a bracket. They cannot print the computer that controls the life support system when the original one fails. NASA's Human Research Program, which systematically evaluates the risks to human health and performance in spaceflight, classifies medical events as one of the 3 highest priority risks for deep space exploration missions alongside behavioral health deterioration and the failure of critical systems. The medical risk is not abstract. The human body, under the conditions already described, radiation, microgravity, psychological stress, impaired immune function, produces medical emergencies with reliable frequency over long enough timescales. Appendicitis, kidney stones, which are significantly more common in microgravity due to increased calcium excretion from bone loss. Cardiac events, dental emergencies, infections that become serious without prompt treatment, injuries, On the International Space Station, the response to a medical event serious enough to require surgical intervention is immediate evacuation. A Soyuz capsule is always docked and ready. The crew member is brought back to Earth and into a hospital within 24 hours. That is not a contingency plan. That is the plan. The ISS's medical capability on board is explicitly designed around the assumption that evacuation is always available, which is why it does not include a surgical suite, a general anesthesia system, or a fully equipped operating theater. A Neptune spacecraft cannot evacuate anyone, ever, for any reason. The crew must therefore be capable of performing whatever medical procedure the situation demands, using whatever equipment the mass budget allowed them to carry, without the option of escalating to a more qualified specialist or transferring the patient to a better equipped facility. A crew member with acute appendicitis on year 11 of a 15-year mission must be treated by another crew member who has training in abdominal surgery but is not a surgeon operating in a microgravity environment with limited anesthetic agents, using instruments that may have been used and re-sterilized dozens of times over a decade, without the ability to call a surgeon in Houston and have them talk through the procedure in real time. The outcome of that surgery depends on the crew member's training, the equipment's condition, the patient's specific anatomy, and a substantial element of chance. There is no backup. There is no, if this does not work, we try something else. There is what happens on that table in that moment, and then whatever follows. NASA is genuinely researching autonomous surgical robots for deep space missions devices that could perform certain procedures without requiring a trained surgeon among the crew. The concept is serious science, not science fiction, and the early stage work is promising. A robotic system, properly programmed and maintained, could plausibly handle some categories of emergency procedures with acceptable outcomes. Who repairs the surgical robot when it malfunctions on year 9? No rescue, no full repairs. So the final question is, can that ship even make it back at all, or was this journey, by its very nature, one way from the very beginning? SpaceX did something that serious aerospace engineers spent decades insisting was economically impossible. They landed an orbital rocket booster upright on a drone ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, refurbished it, and flew it again, then dozens of times. The Falcon 9 booster that flew its 17th mission in 2023 is a piece of hardware that, a generation ago, would have been dropped into the ocean after a single use. Launch costs that once ran above $10,000 per kilogram to low Earth orbit dropped toward $2,700 per kilogram. Starship, the largest and most powerful rocket ever built, is designed explicitly for Mars. The atmosphere around human spaceflight shifted from cautious incrementalism to something that felt genuinely like acceleration. People started using the word inevitable about things they had previously called impossible. None of that changes what Konstantin Tsiolkovsky wrote down in 1897. The Tsiolkovsky rocket equation is not a technology problem. It is not a funding problem, not an engineering challenge waiting for a sufficiently motivated billionaire, not a regulatory obstacle that a more permissive agency might clear away. It is a physical law, in the same category as gravity and the speed of light, a mathematical description of a constraint that exists in the structure of reality itself, independent of how clever or well-capitalized the people trying to work around it happen to be. SpaceX's reusability innovations are genuine and significant. They reduce cost. They change the economics of access to low Earth orbit in ways that matter enormously for certain kinds of missions, and they do not touch the rocket equation at all. The equation does not negotiate with innovation. It simply states what is required. What the equation states, without using the actual formula, is this: to change a spacecraft's velocity to accelerate it, decelerate it, redirect it, you must expel mass in the opposite direction. That expelled mass is your propellant. The faster you need to go, or the more you need to slow down, the more propellant you must burn. But that propellant has mass, and that mass must itself be accelerated along with everything else at the start of the journey, which means you need additional propellant to move the propellant, and you need propellant to move that additional propellant. The requirement compounds on itself exponentially, not linearly, and for large velocity changes. The ratio of propellant mass to useful payload mass becomes almost cosmically lopsided. Engineers call this the tyranny of the rocket equation. The name is not dramatic flourish. It is an accurate description of the relationship between what you want to do and what physics requires you to carry in order to do it. The numbers that emerge from this tyranny are instructive. Getting 1 kilogram of payload into low Earth orbit just off the surface and into a stable orbit above the atmosphere requires approximately 9 kilograms of propellant, with current best-in-class chemical rockets, 9-to-1. That ratio is already humbling, but it is the ratio that has made the entire space age possible. So, humanity has learned to live with it. Getting that same 1 kilogram of payload to Neptune, not flying past it at full speed like Voyager 2 did, but actually decelerating into a stable orbit around it, which any crewed mission would require in order to do anything useful, once it arrived, demands a fundamentally different calculation. The total velocity change required for a Neptune orbital insertion, accounting for the transit from Earth and the deceleration maneuver at arrival, runs to an estimated 20 to 25 kilometers per second, just for the final braking phase alone. For context, the delta V required to lift off from Earth's surface and reach low Earth orbit is approximately 9.4 kilometers per second. Neptune's orbital insertion demands more velocity change than escaping Earth's gravity entirely, and that is only one phase of a multi-phase mission. The propellant mass required to achieve that delta V, carrying a meaningful crewed payload, runs to hundreds of kilograms of propellant per kilogram of useful cargo, compounding across every mission phase. The spacecraft that arrives at Neptune carrying enough fuel to have braked into orbit would have launched from Earth as a structure so dominated by propellant tanks that the useful payload, the habitat, the life support, the crew, the scientific equipment would represent a small fraction of the total mass. This is not a problem that better manufacturing or cheaper launch costs resolves. It is what the equation requires, regardless of who builds the rocket. Voyager 2, again, is the honest comparison. It reached Neptune in August of 1989, but it did not slow down. Not a single engine burn to reduce speed at arrival. It flew through the Neptune system at its full heliocentric velocity, observed for a few days as it passed, and continued outward into interstellar space. A flyby, not an orbital mission. The distinction is not minor. Voyager 2's trajectory was designed to take advantage of the fact that it never had to stop, which is precisely what made it achievable with the propellant budget of a 1977 launch vehicle. A crewed mission that arrives at Neptune and needs to stay there, needs to orbit, needs to conduct operations over months or years. That mission must slow down, and slowing down at Neptune requires carrying the propellant to do it, all the way from Earth, across 4.5 billion kilometers, the entire journey. The delta V number is the honest measure of the challenge. 20 to 25 kilometers per second for orbital insertion alone. The total mission delta V budget, including Earth departure, mid-course corrections, Neptune orbital insertion, and any maneuvering at the destination, runs considerably higher into ranges that current chemical propulsion cannot address at any payload mass that would sustain a human crew. Getting to Neptune is already nearly impossible on fuel alone, but what comes next reveals the number that is truly insane the moment you add the fuel required to come home. To escape Neptune's gravitational field after arriving to push a spacecraft from orbital velocity up to the escape velocity required to begin a return journey requires burning propellant. Neptune's surface gravity is approximately 1.14 times Earth's, and its escape velocity from orbit is roughly 23.5 kilometers per second. Significant. And every kilogram of propellant needed for that departure burn must have been carried aboard since the moment the spacecraft left Earth. Since Neptune has no fuel depot, no orbital service station, no infrastructure of any kind, the return fuel rides the entire outbound journey as dead weight, consuming additional propellant just by existing. Think about a road trip where no gas station exists anywhere on the route or at the destination. You are driving from New York to Los Angeles and back carrying every drop of fuel you will ever use, loaded into the car before you leave the driveway. The car is therefore extremely heavy, which means it burns fuel faster than it otherwise would, which means you needed to load even more fuel to account for the extra weight, which made the car heavier still, which raised the fuel consumption again. You keep adding fuel to compensate for the fuel you added, and the numbers spiral upward before you have left the driveway. That is exactly what the rocket equation does to a round-trip Neptune mission, except the distances are not coast to coast. They are 4.5 billion kilometers each way. And the fuel does not just make the car heavy, it makes the spacecraft so massive that the useful payload, the part containing the crew and their life support and their scientific equipment, shrinks toward an increasingly small fraction of the total launched mass. With the best chemical propulsion currently available, specifically engines using liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen in a configuration that achieves a specific impulse of approximately 450 seconds, which represents roughly the ceiling of current operational chemical rocket performance. The propellant mass required for a round-trip crewed Neptune mission would exceed the total mass of the spacecraft and payload by factors in the thousands. This is not approximation or pessimistic modeling. Engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, who have run the trajectory analysis on Neptune mission concepts, reach this conclusion consistently. The math does not leave a margin. It does not leave room for optimism. A chemical propulsion round trip to Neptune is not difficult. It is not expensive. It is not politically challenging. It is physically prohibited by the ratio the rocket equation produces at those distances and delta V requirements. Nuclear thermal propulsion changes some of the numbers. An NTP engine works by using a nuclear reactor to heat a propellant, typically liquid hydrogen, to extreme temperatures before expelling it, achieving a specific impulse of approximately 800 to 900 seconds, roughly double the best chemical engines. NASA is actively developing NTP technology under the Draco program demonstration rocket for agile cislunar operations with an eye toward significantly reducing transit times for deep space missions. With NTP, a one-way Neptune transit might be shortened to somewhere between 4 and 7 years instead of 12 to 20. That is a meaningful improvement. It changes the physiological calculus somewhat. It is real progress. It does not solve the round-trip fuel problem. What NTP provides is efficiency, more velocity change per kilogram of propellant burned. What it does not provide is enough efficiency to make the round-trip propellant budget manageable at Neptune distances. The improvement in specific impulse roughly halves the propellant mass required compared to chemical engines. Having a number that is already in the thousands still produces a number that no realistic launch vehicle can deliver to Neptune orbit. The equation is more forgiving with NTP. It is not forgiving enough. You have heard about the other candidates. Starship's sheer payload capacity to low Earth orbit, up to 150 metric tons in its fully reusable configuration, is genuinely transformative for missions within the inner solar system. Ion engines, which achieve extraordinary efficiency over long burn durations, have successfully propelled unmanned spacecraft across the solar system and are a serious candidate for cargo missions to the outer planets. Solar sails, which require no propellant at all, extract momentum from sunlight, though at Neptune, where sunlight is 900 times weaker than at Earth, the force available from a solar sail drops to levels that make meaningful propulsion essentially theoretical. So the real question becomes if reusable rockets, nuclear thermal engines, ion drives, and solar sails each run into the same fundamental wall at Neptune distances, what actually solves it? What technology, existing or realistically foreseeable, changes the arithmetic enough to make a round trip viable? The honest answer? The one that emerges from reviewing every serious technical study on the subject is that no such technology currently exists or is in credible near-term development. NASA's Vision mission studies from 2005, which explored long-range human exploration targets, including the outer solar system, identified Neptune as beyond the horizon of achievable crewed missions with any technology roadmap then visible. Subsequent studies have updated the propulsion options without changing the fundamental conclusion. A crewed Neptune mission, if it ever flies, will almost certainly be a one-way mission, not because the people who plan it lack the desire to bring the crew home, and not because no one thought hard enough about the return journey, but because the physics of propulsion at 4.5 billion kilometers does not permit a round trip with any technology the human species currently possesses or is likely to develop within the planning horizon of any realistic mission proposal. Elon Musk has publicly stated his willingness to fly to Mars on the first crewed mission, knowing the early flights carry significant risk of death. That level of personal commitment to a destination is notable and, in its way, admirable. But even Musk, who has built his career on treating the impossible as a scheduling problem, has never once publicly discussed Neptune as a human destination, not as a long-term goal, not as a moonshot, not even as a thought experiment worth entertaining aloud. The rocket equation applies equally to SpaceX hardware. Neptune has not appeared on any roadmap that bears his name. The universe, it turns out, does not offer a discount for audacity. No return, no rescue, the body dissolving. But there is one loss that none of these numbers can capture, a loss you cannot measure in kilometers or millisieverts or bone density percentages. The loss that may be the most devastating of all: you will never see Earth again. Every astronaut who has looked down at Earth from orbit describes the same moment. It arrives without warning, usually on the first or second day, when they float to a window and actually see it, not a photograph, not a screen, not a simulation, but the real thing, suspended in black, impossibly blue and white, and alive against the absolute nothing surrounding it. The feeling that follows is not what they expected. It is not pride or excitement or the satisfaction of arrival. It is something closer to being struck. Edgar Mitchell, who walked on the moon during Apollo 14 in February of 1971, described looking back at Earth and experiencing what he called an instant global consciousness, a sudden, overwhelming sense that everything down there is connected, that borders and conflicts and divisions are constructs laid over something fundamentally unified, and that this understanding arrived not as a thought, but as a physical sensation, like a door opening in the chest. Psychologists eventually gave this phenomenon a name: the overview effect. Astronaut after astronaut, across decades and space agencies and nationalities, reported variations of the same experience. Ron Garan called it orbital perspective. Chris Hadfield wrote about it at length. It has been documented rigorously enough that researchers now study it as a genuine psychological phenomenon with measurable effects on values, worldview, and sense of connection to humanity. The common thread is the visual anchor, the act of seeing Earth, whole and present and real, floating in the window. That image does something to the human brain that no amount of description or photography or simulation fully replicates. It requires actually being there, actually looking, actually seeing it with your own eyes. From Neptune, you cannot see Earth at all. Sunlight at Neptune's distance is 900 times weaker than at Earth's surface. The inverse square law governs this with perfect indifference: double the distance, quarter the light, triple the distance, 1/9 the light. Neptune orbits at 30 astronomical units, 30 times Earth's distance from the Sun, so the solar illumination there is 1 divided by 30 squared, which equals 1/900th of what reaches your eyes on a clear afternoon. The Sun itself, viewed from Neptune, is not the blazing disk that fills Earth's sky. It is a very bright star, noticeably brighter than anything else in the sky, but a point of light nonetheless. Slightly brighter than Sirius appears from Earth, cold, distant, diminished almost beyond recognition. Earth, at that distance, does not appear at all. Not with the naked eye, not as a disk, not as a dot, not as a smudge. Invisible. The planet on which every human being who has ever lived was born, the only world humanity has ever called home, is simply not there when you look out the window of a spacecraft at 30 astronomical units. Even the Hubble Space Telescope, the most powerful optical instrument humanity has ever deployed for planetary observation. A machine that has imaged galaxies billions of light years away with breathtaking resolution would see Earth from 30 astronomical units as a single pixel. Not a recognizable disk, not a blue marble, 1 pixel of pale blue, indistinguishable from background noise without precise pointing and careful image processing. This is not a hypothetical. It is the direct extension of what Voyager 1 actually produced in February of 1990. When Carl Sagan requested that the spacecraft turn its camera back toward the inner solar system from a distance of approximately 40 astronomical units. The resulting image Earth as a fraction of a pixel, a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam, less than 1/10 of a single pixel across, became the pale blue dot. One of the most philosophically significant photographs ever taken. And it was taken from 10 astronomical units farther away than Neptune. From Neptune, Earth is not even the pale blue dot. It is below the threshold of visibility. It is nothing. The psychological consequence of this is not a side note. It is central to understanding what a Neptune mission actually requires of the human beings aboard it. The overview effect. That powerful, documented, mission-sustaining anchor of seeing home is not available to a Neptune crew. Not diminished, not weakened, not available only on clear days. Gone, permanently and irreversibly gone from the moment the spacecraft crosses the asteroid belt and Earth fades below the resolution of any instrument the crew carries. Astronauts on the ISS, on the Moon, even hypothetically on Mars, retain the ability to look out a window and see Earth as a recognizable presence. On Mars, at its closest approach, Earth is a bright blue star, small, but visibly not like the other stars, visibly distinct, visibly there. Something to look at? Something that connects the biology of looking to the psychology of belonging. The Neptune crew loses that at some point during the outbound transit, watches it go and never gets it back. The closest comparison is losing the only photograph you brought of everyone you love, not through theft or accident, but watching it fade slowly in your hands, the colors bleeding out, the faces softening into blur, until the paper is white and nothing is left, and you remember what was there but cannot see it anymore. The difference is that the photograph fades over months, across hundreds of millions of kilometers. And by the time it is gone, the crew has already traveled too far for turning back to be an option. They watch Earth go, and then they live for another decade or more in a universe where it does not visually exist. The astronauts who have experienced the overview effect, consistently report that it sustains them, that the image of Earth, whole and fragile and real in the window, provides a psychological grounding that nothing else replaces. Strip that away permanently from human beings in extreme isolation for 15 to 20 years. And you are not simply removing a comfort. You are removing something that the data suggests is structural to the psychological stability of people in space. Earth has vanished from sight, but there is something crueler still: the way Earth disappears, not just from the crew's eyes, but from their sense of time itself. Every piece of news that reaches the Neptune crew from Earth is already history by the time it arrives. The signal carrying it traveled at the speed of light, the fastest anything in the universe can move, and still took more than 4 hours to cross the distance. Whatever the message describes happened 4 hours and 9 minutes ago at minimum. Not delayed like a slow postal service. Structurally, physically delayed. The crew does not receive information about the present. They receive dispatches from the recent past every single time, without exception, for the entire duration of the mission. An earthquake in California, a national election result, a child's birthday, a parent's diagnosis, all of it arrives time-stamped 4 hours behind the moment it was sent, which was itself some hours or days after the event occurred. The crew inhabits a version of Earth that is always slightly behind the one that actually exists, and unlike every other form of delayed communication humans have ever experienced, this delay cannot be shortened by any means available to anyone. Make it specific. A crew member's mother dies. Her family on Earth learns of it and immediately, in their grief, records a message to send. That message travels 4 hours and 9 minutes to reach the spacecraft. The crew member receives it, broken open by the news, and records a response words they desperately need their family to hear, something human and immediate and necessary. That response travels 4 hours and 9 minutes back. The total elapsed time from the moment the family sent the first message to the moment they hear the crew member's voice responding to it, more than 8 hours. Not a bureaucratic delay, not a technical failure. Physics. The most personal crisis a human being can experience, the death of a parent, becomes an exchange that unfolds over the length of a full working day, with silence stretching across the gap where a phone call would have been. Every emotional emergency follows the same structure. Every moment that demands immediacy gets the same answer from the universe: 8 hours. Minimum. You want to ask if someone is okay? 8 hours. You want to tell someone you love them before they go into surgery? 8 hours. You want to know whether the person who mattered most to you made it through? 8 hours. Think about the last time you received genuinely bad news and needed someone with you right then. Not tomorrow. Not in an hour immediately. The physical need for another human presence in that moment. The way the body reaches for contact when something inside it breaks. Now, place that moment inside a metal spacecraft at 30 astronomical units from Earth and change immediately to 8 hours from now. If the signal travels without interruption, if the equipment functions, if the person on the other end is awake and available to respond at the moment, your message arrives at 3 in the morning, their time. The damage is not only in the acute moments, it accumulates. Over years, the temporal drift compounds in ways that alter the fundamental relationship between the crew and the civilization they left behind. In the first months, the gap is strange and uncomfortable, but the world the crew remembers is still roughly the world that exists. By year 3 or 4, the divergence has grown. A president they knew is gone. Companies they were familiar with have failed or transformed. Technology they launched with is outdated. Cultural references and messages from home start to require explanation. The crew knows about these changes. They receive the news eventually, but they receive them as items in a list. Dispatches from a world that is evolving without them. A narrative they are following from the outside rather than living from the inside. By year 10, the world the crew carries in their memory is not the world that exists on Earth. It is a reconstruction, assembled from delayed messages and recorded videos and secondhand accounts of things that happened months before they heard about them. Friends have aged in photographs more than they have in memory. Children have grown past recognizable. The cultural context that gave meaning to shared jokes and shorthand references has shifted enough that the conversation requires translation. The crew does not belong to the present tense Earth anymore. They belong to the Earth that existed when they left a version that is still vivid and real inside them, but which is now, by any objective measure, the past. Jack Stuster, one of NASA's most cited researchers on long-duration spaceflight psychology, documented this phenomenon's precursors in his report, Bold Endeavors Lessons from Polar and Space Exploration, a study he conducted for NASA and updated in 2010. Stuster analyzed historical records of isolated expeditions, Antarctic winter rovers, submarine deployments, remote research stations, and identified communication distance as one of the most psychologically corrosive factors in long-term isolation. His work describes what he calls a crew autonomy paradox. The further a crew is from Earth, the more completely self-reliant they must be in practical terms, and simultaneously, the more emotionally dependent on whatever connection to Earth remains available. The two requirements pull in opposite directions. Operational independence demands that crew members function without external guidance. Psychological survival demands that they maintain some living thread to the world they came from. At Neptune, the operational independence is absolute, and the living thread is a time-delayed audio file arriving every few days. They would be, in a narrow but accurate sense, the only people alive who cannot follow the news. Not because the news does not reach them. It does. Eventually. Always. But by the time it arrives, it is no longer news. It is already a footnote, an entry in a record of events that the rest of humanity processed and moved on from while the crew was still waiting for the signal to cross the void. They cannot doomscroll because doomscrolling requires a present tense. Everything they receive from Earth is already history, invisible to the eye, displaced in time, and when all of it accumulates, the distance, the silence, the fading, the drift, there is a threshold somewhere out there past which Earth stops being a place. It becomes a concept. Magellan's fleet left Spain in September of 1519 with 5 ships and roughly 270 men. He died in the Philippines before completing the circumnavigation, killed in a battle he should not have entered. Only 1 ship and 18 men made it back to Spain 3 years later. Ernest Shackleton watched his ship Endurance crushed by Antarctic pack ice in 1915, led his crew across 800 miles of the most violent ocean on Earth in an open lifeboat, and brought every single man home alive. Neil Armstrong descended a ladder onto the lunar surface in July of 1969, planted a flag on a world no human being had ever touched, and was back on Earth less than 9 days after leaving it. These men went to the edge of what was survivable. They faced death with clear eyes and went anyway. And every single one of them Magellan until his last day. Shackleton across every desperate mile. Armstrong, from the moment he stepped off the ladder, knew there was a path home. Magellan's crew took it. Shackleton invented one from nothing. Armstrong followed a trajectory that had been calculated to bring him back with mathematical precision. The path home existed. The knowledge of it existed. And that knowledge, researchers who study extreme isolation now understand, is not a small thing. It is structural. It is load-bearing. It holds the psychology together in ways that only become visible when it is taken away. The Neptune crew does not have a path home. We established the physics of that already: the rocket equation, the fuel mass, the impossibility of the return delta V with any foreseeable propulsion technology. But the absence of a return path is not only a technical fact, it is a psychological condition. And it produces something that human experience has no real precedent for, and human language has no precise word for. The closest approximation, the description that comes nearest to what these people would be, is this voluntary exiles of the human species. Not explorers, not astronauts in the traditional sense. Something new, something that the entire accumulated vocabulary of adventure and discovery was not built to describe, because nothing like it has ever existed before. Call it the exile horizon. The concept is worth naming precisely because it marks something real, not a physical boundary in space, not a distance that can be plotted on a chart, but a psychological threshold. The point at which a person no longer belongs to the community they came from, not because they chose to leave it behind, not because they rejected it or abandoned it, but because the accumulation of distance and time and physical law has severed every thread that made belonging possible. The crew did not stop being human. They stopped being reachable. And somewhere in the gap between those two things lives the exile horizon, the line past which home is no longer a place you can return to, or contact meaningfully, or even see. John Bowlby developed attachment theory across the 1950s and 60s, building a framework that described something fundamental about how human beings function psychologically. Central to his model is the concept of the secure base, a stable point of connection and safety from which a person can venture out into the world and to which they can return when threatened. In infancy, it is a caregiver. In adulthood, it evolves, but it never disappears. Adults maintain secure bases through relationships, through community, through the accumulated sense that somewhere there is a place and a set of people that constitute home. That secure base is not optional equipment for healthy psychological function. Bowlby's decades of research and the enormous body of work that followed from it established it as foundational. Remove the secure base and the psychology begins to reorganize itself around the loss not cleanly, not without cost. At 30 astronomical units, with a 4-hour one-way signal delay and no possibility of physical return, the secure base does not exist in any operational sense. It exists as memory and as the weak, distorted echo of asynchronous messages from people who are aging and changing in ways the crew cannot witness in real time. The theoretical secure base is still there. The crew knows Earth is there, knows the people they love are there, but the practical secure base, the one that functions as an actual psychological anchor, has been removed by physics. No existing therapeutic framework, no adaptation of Bowlby's theory, no branch of clinical psychology currently models what happens to a human psyche when the secure base is present as concept, but absent as reality for 15 to 20 consecutive years. The historical comparisons are instructive precisely because of how far short they fall. European immigrants crossing the Atlantic to America in the 19th century knew the crossing took weeks, that letters would take months, that a return voyage was expensive and difficult but possible. They grieved the distance. Some never went back. But the option existed, and the mail arrived, and the thread connecting them to their origin did not snap. It stretched and thinned and sometimes frayed, but it held. Convicts transported to Australia in the 18th century faced a 6-month voyage and knew most would never return, but letters could still be sent, still be received, still carry the texture of a real human voice across the water. The thread was slow and thin and unreliable. It was still a thread. The Neptune crew loses both. The possibility of return and the possibility of real communication, simultaneously and permanently, on a timescale that makes every previous experience of human separation look trivial by comparison. They do not stretch the thread. They watch it dissolve. The exile horizon is a psychological boundary, but what waits on the other side of it is a question far more unsettling once a person crosses that line. Are they still part of humanity in any meaningful sense? Martin Heidegger argued that human beings do not simply exist in the world they are constituted by it. Being in the world, his foundational concept, means that identity is not something a person carries inside them independently of their surroundings. It is something that emerges continuously from the relationship between a person and the environment they inhabit, the places, the objects, the other people, the sensory textures of a lived world. Strip away the environment, and you do not simply leave the identity intact inside an empty vessel. You change the identity because the identity was never separate from the world that produced it. For the Neptune crew, the world that produced their identity, Earth, in its full sensory and social reality, becomes inaccessible in every dimension that Heidegger's framework treats as constitutive. It cannot be seen, it cannot be touched, it cannot be smelled or heard or felt underfoot. It cannot be communicated with in any way that preserves the living quality of connection. The relationship between the crew members and their homeworld becomes, over years, not a relationship at all in any active sense, but a set of memories, increasingly incomplete, increasingly untethered from any reinforcing sensory experience to keep them vivid. The crew will remember the smell of coffee in the morning, the specific weight of it, the warmth of the cup, the way the aroma reaches you before you are fully awake. They will remember rain not as an abstract fact, but as a physical experience. The smell of wet pavement, the sound of it on a window, the involuntary pleasure of walking in from it and feeling warmth again. They will remember real gravity, not the cognitive knowledge that gravity exists on Earth, but the felt sense of weight distributed through the body the way it has been distributed through every human body for 4 million years of evolutionary history. These are not intellectual memories. They are sensory memories stored differently in the brain, retrieved differently, and critically, maintained differently. Sensory memory does not persist on recall alone. It requires periodic reinforcement through actual sensory experience. Without that reinforcement, across 15 to 20 years, it fades, not instantly, not completely, but the resolution drops. The vividness thins. The memory of rain becomes the idea of rain. The memory of coffee becomes the category of coffee. And eventually, for a crew member in year 14 of a mission in a metal spacecraft at 30 astronomical units, Earth is no longer a place they remember with their body. It is a place they know, intellectually, once existed. There is a distinction between a place you remember and a place you know once existed. The first is home. The second is history. If you cannot see your home, cannot feel it, cannot reach it in any way that carries the actual weight of connection, and you know, with complete certainty, that you will never return to it, ask yourself honestly, is it still your home? Or has it become the home of someone else, a previous version of you? The one who stayed, the one who exists now, only in the memories you carry from before the mission launched. Which version of you is the real one? The person who left, or the person who has been living for 15 years in a world that has no Earth in it? This is not rhetorical provocation. It is the actual psychological question that a Neptune crew would face over years, without any established framework to navigate it, without any therapist who has ever helped a patient through this specific experience, without any historical precedent that comes close enough to offer useful guidance. The Neptune crew would represent something genuinely unprecedented in the history of Homo sapiens, the first group of human beings to be permanently and completely severed from the living present of their civilization. Not temporarily isolated like researchers at Antarctic winter over stations, who count down the days until extraction. Not cut off like prisoners of war, who maintain the psychological anchor of a conflict that will eventually end. Not even like the most remote historical explorers, who carried with them the knowledge that civilization was still accessible in principle. The Neptune crew is severed by physics, permanently, with no mechanism of return and no communication channel that preserves the present tense quality of connection. They know civilization continues. They receive its dispatches, delayed and hollow. But they are not in it. They are watching it from outside, through a window that only looks backward in time. Nick Canis and Dietrich Manzi, in their foundational text Space Psychology and Psychiatry, updated in 2008 and widely considered the authoritative reference on the psychology of spaceflight, identify the Earth out of view phenomenon as one of the least studied and most potentially significant psychological factors in deep space exploration. The reason it is understudied is straightforward: no mission has ever lasted long enough, or gone far enough, to produce it in a form that could be properly observed and documented. Every human being who has ever left Earth has been able to see it from where they were, or return to it within days or months. Neptune would be the first mission to take Earth entirely out of view, permanently, for a crew that would live with that condition for the remainder of their lives. The first experiment, also the last, for those particular human beings. Psychologists refer to the terra firma effect, the deep, apparently universal human need for the felt sense of solid ground beneath them, of a home landscape, of the specific sensory experience of the place that formed them. We cannot, at present, design a human being who does not have this need. We have not identified a training protocol that eliminates it. We have not found a pharmacological or psychological intervention that substitutes for it adequately over long durations. We are still actively trying to figure out what to do about it for a Mars mission. Mars is approximately 1.5 to 2 years away at current propulsion levels. Neptune is 15. We do not have an answer. We are still looking for the question to ask. Earth has become a concept. Civilization has become a memory. And at the very bottom of all of it, past the physics and the biology and the psychology, one final question surfaces, not about rockets or radiation or rocket fuel, but about meaning itself. Why go? Everything covered across the previous 14 sections: the distance, the communication collapse, the dissolving body, the impossibility of rescue, the tyranny of the fuel equation, the disappearing Earth. The psychological severance, all of it points toward a single question that the physics cannot answer and the engineering cannot address. Why does the human species keep thinking about this? Not why do engineers study Neptune mission concepts in academic papers. Not why do science fiction writers send characters there. Why does the species as a whole keep pointing itself outward, keep generating the impulse to go further, to the next unreachable place, past the next horizon that looks unsurvivable from where we currently stand? The answer is not technical. It has nothing to do with what we can do. It is not about capability at all. It is about what Homo sapiens is. We are the only species on this planet that deliberately, with full awareness of the risk, chooses challenges that exceed our survival capacity. Every other organism on Earth moves toward safety, toward resources, toward reproductive success, away from the genuinely lethal and the genuinely unknown. Homo sapiens is the single evolutionary exception to that pattern. We walk toward the thing that might kill us because it is there and we do not know what is beyond it. And something in the deepest architecture of our cognition cannot leave that question alone. The anthropological record is full of this. Approximately 15,000 years ago, during the last glacial maximum, a population of Homo sapiens crossed Beringia, the land bridge that connected Siberia to what is now Alaska, exposed by lower sea levels as glaciers locked up enormous quantities of water. They walked into a continent that no human being had ever entered, across terrain that offered no guarantee of survival, carrying no knowledge of what lay ahead, with no way to communicate with any other human population, and no mechanism of return if it went wrong. They went anyway. The descendants of that crossing eventually spread across 2 entire continents, from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego, over the following millennia. Several thousand years ago, the exact timeline is still debated, but the archaeological evidence points to at least 3,000 years before the present Polynesian navigators crossed the Pacific Ocean in double-hulled canoes. The Pacific, the largest body of water on Earth, covering more surface area than all of Earth's landmasses combined. They navigated by stars, by ocean swell patterns, by the behavior of birds, without instruments, without maps of where they were going, covering distances that modern sailors in purpose-built vessels still find demanding. They settled Hawaii, Easter Island, New Zealand islands separated from any known land by thousands of miles of open ocean. No one told them what was out there. That was, in some fundamental sense, the point. In May of 1953, Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay reached the summit of Everest. They did not know with certainty that human beings could survive at that altitude. The physiological data was incomplete. Previous attempts had produced deaths and ambiguous outcomes. They went to the top of the highest point on Earth, not because survival was guaranteed, but because the question of whether it was possible demanded an answer that only going could provide. Neptune is the next entry in that sequence, not the next item on a bucket list, not the next milestone in an orderly progression, the next genuinely unsurvivable-looking horizon in a species whose defining characteristic is that unsurvivable-looking horizons attract rather than repel them. The question we opened with why would the first humans to reach Neptune never see Earth again has an answer, now that is more complex than the physics it started with. It is not only because the distance is too great, and the fuel equation prohibits return, and the body cannot survive the radiation, and the psychology cannot sustain the isolation, though all of those things are true. It is because when you go far enough, long enough, deep enough into the dark, never seeing Earth again stops being a description of loss and starts being a description of transformation. The person who stepped aboard the spacecraft and the person who arrives at Neptune after 15 years in the void are not the same person. They cannot be. The journey changes the traveler in ways that have no reversal. Earth does not become less real. It becomes differently real, not a place the body inhabits, but a place the self was made from. Carried forward not in the legs, but in the bones of everything the journey meant. If someone steps forward, knowing all of this, knowing the radiation and the bone loss, and the 8-hour communication delay, and the fuel impossibility, and the permanently invisible Earth, and the psychological severance, and the death at Neptune orbit, with no grave that anyone will ever visit. That person is not an astronaut in the sense we currently use the word. They are something that does not have a name yet. A new kind of human. The first members of a chapter that the species has not yet learned to title. And that opens the only question worth closing this with, not about Neptune, not about propulsion or psychology, or any of the specific mechanisms of impossibility. We have examined what is the human species, if not a collection of creatures who continuously become something they were not. By going somewhere, they were told they could not. After 30 astronomical units of distance and 4 hours of signal delay, and 15 years of transit, and 900 times less sunlight than a summer afternoon after all of it, we are not actually talking about Neptune. We are talking about the limits of being human. No equation resolves absolute loneliness. No propulsion breakthrough makes Earth closer when you are standing at the edge of the solar system. We do not know whether human psychology can survive that journey, because no one has tried it. And the simulations we have run stop well short of the real thing. The honest answer, the one that every serious study of this subject eventually reaches, is that we do not know. We have a great deal of evidence suggesting it is nearly impossible in multiple simultaneous dimensions: physical, biological, psychological, logistical. We have very little evidence about what happens to a human being who goes anyway. Because that human being does not yet exist, Neptune sits out there cold, deep blue, circled by storms that have lasted longer than human civilization, orbited by a moon called Triton that rotates backward against the planet's spin as if it arrived from somewhere else and never quite belonged. It does not announce itself as a destination. It does not ask to be reached. It simply exists at 30 astronomical units in the dark. As a question, the universe is not interested in answering on our behalf. Carl Sagan wrote about the pale blue dot. Look again at that dot. He said, "That is home. That is us. Everything that has ever happened in the history of our species happened on that small stage." From Neptune, that dot disappears entirely. And perhaps, only perhaps, that is the precise moment when the human species would begin to exceed itself. Not because home is gone, but because home is no longer something you can see. It is something you carry. And carrying it, weightless and invisible and irreplaceable, across 4.5 billion kilometers of absolute nothing that might be the most human thing anyone has ever done. Neptune is not waiting for us to be ready. The universe has never waited for that. The question was never whether we will get there. The question is who we will be when we do.